You ready? Time. Welcome. Bob Ross, the late great landscape American painter. He believed in happy accidents, and so do I. But when it comes to producing extraordinary coffee, controlling every variable and understanding what each one contributes is key. Up until the last few years of scientific research and advancement, we'd attribute most flavors to happy accidents. But now, more than ever, we have the ability to pinpoint exactly where flavor comes from. So let's begin. The coffee I'm serving you today is the result of a happy accident of red and yellow Bourbon cross-pollinating. Lucy Fernanda Galindez produces exquisite pink Bourbon on her farm, Finca Bella Vista, located at 1,800 meters above sea level in San Agustin, Colombia. Now, since pink is a recessive trait, Lucy has to work painstakingly hard to ensure that she's producing only pink Bourbon. She processes all of her coffee as fully washed on her small wet mill. Now, if we were to cup that coffee blind today, it would cup like a beautiful washed geisha, loaded with great florality, stone fruit, and an elegant acidity. But when we were preparing for this competition 2 years ago, we wondered if there was any way to pull out even more flavor by processing it slightly differently. So we reached out to one of the best coffee processors that we know, Diego Bermudez of Finca El Paraiso. Now, after consulting with Diego and Lucy both, we all decided, let's give this a shot. So after much coordination with Lucy and her team, they picked the pink Bourbon at peak brick count early in the morning. Then our importing partner and friend, Jose Hadir of Osido Coffee, load up that cherry into his truck, and he drives it 3 hours over the Andes Mountains to Diego's farm. Now, when you arrive at Diego's farm, it's almost like walking into a laboratory of a mad scientist. We have lab coats, we have microscopes, we've got bioreactors. And when his team receives the cherry, they instantly get to work, first by sanitizing the cherry with ozonated water. This is to ensure that they have 100% completely controlled fermentation. Next, they take that cherry, they put it in a bioreactor, 48 hours, 15 degrees Celsius, pressurizing the tank to 20 psi. Now, at the end of this first stage of fermentation, they collect all of the juice, also known as biomass, and they use it to inoculate local yeast and bacteria at a very specific ratio. Next, they pulp the coffee, place the pulped coffee, all those juices, back into the bioreactor. They repeat the process, 48 hours, 15 degrees, but this time they continue to increase the pressure throughout the duration of the secondary fermentation. This is where all those physicochemical and biochemical reactions take place. Now, in order to lock in all of that flavor, Diego does what he calls a thermal shock. This is where he heats up the bioreactor to 45 degrees for 30 minutes. This opens up all the cellular walls of the coffee. He then crashes that fermentation in 10-degree water, locking in all of that incredible flavor. Now, this works off the same principle of blanching vegetables and placing them into an ice bath. Lastly, Diego takes that coffee and he puts it in his proprietary dryers that work off the principle of mass transfer. This is where he's dehumidifying the coffee, drying it from the inside out. Now today, I'm dosing 20 grams in, about 40 grams out at around 25 seconds. Now, I'd ask, when I set these in front of you, you would first assess the crema, and please wait to taste. Now, there are up to 40% of volatile compounds that never make it into our espresso due to evaporation. But working with Nucleus Coffee Tools, who has been collaborating with Zurich University for the last 2 years, they've discovered that if you extract the espresso over these frozen spheres, that you can capture all of that incredible flavor, making sure that we don't miss out on all the hard work of Lucy, Diego, and the team. So let's write down some tasting notes. You're going to experience a juicy peach, Rainier cherry, oolong tea, and a pleasant lingering dark chocolate bitter finish. For the tactile, it is medium in weight. Extracting it over those Paragon espresso spheres gives it a very soft texture. It is round, smooth, and pleasantly coating. I'd ask that you would stir 4 times, front to back, placing your dirty spoons in those white cups. Enjoy. Thank you. Thank you. About 15 more seconds to record your experience and score, and we'll move on. You guys ready? Now, Diego's processing is by no means a happy accident. But what does it do to the coffee? It takes all those flavors that are inherent in Lucy's coffee, it laser focuses them, it turns them up to a 10. By Diego understanding what each variable is and does, he's able to control, manipulate, and repeat that process every time, just like us repeating a roast profile on the Stronghold roaster. So we roasted this coffee for 9 minutes, giving us a development time ratio of 16%. This slightly more aggressive roast allowed us to penetrate the coffee, pulling out loads of sweetness without covering up all that beautiful acidity, elegant body, and beautiful fruit notes. Let's write down some tasting notes for your milk course. You're going to experience a slightly salted butterscotch, chocolate mousse, and right as you're about ready to record your experience and score, you're going to get a lovely caramelized peach. So right at the end, as it's starting to cool down just a little bit. Now for your milk course, in order to match the precision of processing and growing of Diego and Lucy's coffee, we had to turn to milk cryodesiccation. Although freeze distilled is delicious, we found it to be very inconsistent from batch to batch. Milk cryodesiccation, on the other hand, yields us the exact same results every time. So this 24-hour process begins by first freezing the milk. That implies gentle pressure. It applies gentle heat while keeping it under a vacuum, allowing for the removal of all of the water through sublimation, leaving only the fats, the sugars, and the proteins. Concentrating this milk, please enjoy, up to 900%. We then take 30 grams of that cryodesiccated milk, and we rehydrate it with 330 grams of the same original milk that we began with. Now this not only just increases the incredible sweetness, but it also gives it a lovely, silky texture. Please enjoy. But one of my favorite things is that we find it's the most harmonious balance between that sweet, creamy milk and Lucy's sweet, fruity coffee. Thank you for your patience. Enjoy. Please don't feel rushed. I know you've been waiting the longest. I will make sure that you have plenty of time to enjoy it. So I don't want you to miss out on any of this. Thank you. About 10 more seconds to record your experience. All right, you guys ready? You guys will follow me around single file, step over this direction. You'll go at the very end. Next. Thank you. We've got some fresh water there if you need to refresh your palates. Now, for your signature drink, I wanted to create something that was equally as repeatable as Diego's processing and our roasting on the Stronghold. Now, since fruit is very inconsistent with its sweetness and its flavors, I decided to turn to the sugars and the acids that we find in fruit in order to use them as my ingredients, allowing me to transform Lucy's coffee into something even more incredible. So we've started with 80 grams of the espresso that I've allowed to chill without dilution in the hyper chiller. Next, I'm going to be adding 20 grams of a fructose simple syrup that is both sweet and tart. Now for the sweet side, we're blending equal parts of fructose and water. Now fructose is a sugar that we find in fruit and is very sweet. It's going to transform that Rainier cherry into a hard cherry candy. Now for the tart side, since Lucy's coffee has a fair amount of malic acid, I just needed to add 0.2 grams of citric acid to introduce a new note of blood orange. Now, if you add acid to something, you need to add some fat to balance it out. So I'm adding in 2 grams of a butter syrup that I made by blending equal parts of melted butter, water, and sugar. And once that's fully incorporated, in order to stabilize it at room temperature, I add 2 grams of an emulsifier called 210S. And that's acacia gum and xanthan gum. And that's going to give us a very slick and coating texture. Now, for the controlled dilution, I've been allowing 170 grams of tonic water off gas. We've been removing all of the CO2 on this magnetic stir. Now, the quinine in this is going to give us a lovely grapefruit-like bitter finish on the end. It's very clean. Now, to remind us that it is pink bourbon and not a geisha, even though it may taste like one, I'm adding 4 grams of an all-natural red food coloring. When we add this to the rest of these ingredients, it's going to give us a lovely pink hue. Now to fully incorporate all of this drink and homogenize it, giving it a lovely pillowy and airy texture, I'm going to be nitrogenating it. Now, one of my favorite things about Lucy's coffee are the incredible peach aromatics. I wanted to make sure that we don't lose any of those. So I'm going to be adding dry ice to a white tea that has cryodesiccated peaches in it. And I'm going to be capturing this in all of your SIG drinks glasses. Now, I will be serving this chilled, but not cold, because we don't want to cover up all of those beautiful flavors. Let's write down those tasting notes. You're going to get that blood orange, a hard cherry candy, pomegranate juice, and that pleasant, lingering, grapefruit-like bitter finish. Now for drinking instructions, I'd ask that you guys wait until I call time. And when I call time, I'd ask you to take off the lid, place it right by your water glasses, take in those beautiful peach aromatics, and take a minimum of 3 sips to get really comfortable with this drink's complexity. Now, although there were happy accidents along this journey, such as discovering the pink bourbon mutation, discovering new coffee processes, and connecting with new colleagues, it took 2 years of hard work, collaborating, working with 2 competing importers, working with 2 farmers, one very progressive and one very progressive being Diego, one very, happy little accident, traditional being Lucy. All of us working with the same goal and desire, and that's to produce an extraordinary coffee that we can control year after year and produce it together. I believe if we want to continue to progress the landscape of our industry, it's going to take intentional innovation through collaboration and cooperation from all. It's been my pleasure serving you. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed as much as I do. Time.
And that's Isaiah, representing United States of America.